Okay, 6:30. At this time, I'd like to call the Administrative Services Committee meeting for Monday, January 7th. Please call the roll.
Counselor Corradino.
Here.
Counselor DeMassey.
Here.
Counselor Hill.
Here.
Counselor Tesserero.
Here.
Counselor Wilmot.
Here. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 committee meeting. Counselor Tesserero, Counselor Hill.
Corradino.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor
Sorry.
Hill.
I was going to tell them.
Counselor Tesserero.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes. Is there any old business to address at this committee? Seeing none, moving right along to the first item under communication. The clerk's office requests your consideration for 7 companies that have submitted applications and their deposits with the city clerk for the 2019 solid waste license. As all of you know, this is an annual thing where the haulers have to submit or purchase a permit. Pretty standard. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councillor Wilma, Councillor DeMassey.
Counselor Corradino.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Tesserero.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes. Item number 2, the Engineering's Office requests approval of change order number 3, decreasing the construction contract with W.D. Malone Trucking and Excavation Incorporated for the New York State Route 48 Slope Stability and Roadway Construction Project in the amount of $1,643.37. Oh, Mr. Johnson, you're here to speak to this?
Yes,
Great.
Counselor. Yeah, this is a closeout. This is the end of the items. So after they did the math, came in just a little bit under what was approved. And so this change order is a negative number, $1,600.
Excellent. It's good news for us. Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
We get to keep that money?
Oh, I see a question in the back corner.
Sorry. Do we get to keep that money?
Well, that's money that we're not paying out. So yes, we do keep it.
That's what I'm glad to hear. Reserve fund.
Correct. Thanks for clarifying that topic. Anything else, Mr. Johnson?
No, that's it on that one.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other comments, concerns? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councillor DeMassey, Councillor Hill.
Counselor Corradino.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Tesserero.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes. Item number 3, the Engineering Office requests approval of a renewal of operation and maintenance agreement for the Surgo High Dam Hydroelectric Plant. Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so this same type of arrangement that we've had with Brookfield right along. Nothing in the contract has changed other than the price. John Elmer started at 4%. He went down to 3.5%. He finally ended at 3.25% with the conversations that I had with him. I don't know that they'll negotiate anymore, and I felt that this is probably a fair enough deal to put in front of council.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? I did have just one or maybe 2 questions. In the contract that I read, it did break out a review for...
Emergency action plan.
Yes, emergency action plan. Was that the same thing that was done last year? It wasn't included in the overall bid?
I tried to pull that one out of the contract, and he did push back on it. Every year you have to do a certain testing and call out, and it's a reprint. And then about every 5 years, the FERC requires you to do a complete rewrite. And he basically told me, look, if you want me to pull it out, I'll pull it out. You do all the filing. All right? And so it's kind of a catch-22 right there. I mean, I could probably do the filing all right, but as you move forward in the next few years, it'd be more and more difficult for people to get that filing done.
Yeah, because I think that was listed at a price of $4,000, was it?
4,500.
4,500? And, I mean, does it entail a lot of paperwork? I mean, is it like a cut and paste thing where you could take last year's review and
Yeah,
just change the
yeah.
dates and send it on?
It's a very, well, one of the reasons I don't like paying it is because they do the Oswego River project, and there's 7 projects. They have to include High Dam as part of the Oswego River project. Now, High Dam is also a separate project. It's our license. So for them to include the High Dam as a licensing portion, they want to get paid for it. Essentially, they got to do the work no matter what, you know. And but I put it on the table, and he really, you know, refused to. If you'd like to bring John Elmer in and speak to him.
At this point, I would encourage you, I mean, this is an annual thing.
No.
No,
this
it's
is
a five-year?
This is for 3 years.
3 years.
With a contingency to extend it for 2 after that.
Okay. All right. Well, you've explained it. I would have hoped that we could have played a little more hardball and tried to get him to throw that in. It sounds, and again, you've done an excellent job of explaining it, but maybe I'm simplifying it. It just seems like it's the same thing every year, and they just kind of change the numbers.
Well, they do.
And it's $4,500.
Well, the 4,500 had been in the last contract. That's not a new item. And the cost of doing business does go up, but
Okay.
you know, I quite frankly, they're the only operation in town that we can deal with. And if we get a wind farm, you know, we may have somebody else that would look at this project. Manning the project ourselves would probably double that cost. You know, it's a benefit for them to have the contract, but I think it's a benefit to us as well. But of course, I'm not happy that it continues to go up, you know, year after year. And 2023, we lose out the power purchase agreement is over. So we'll be on day ahead after that. Once you go on day ahead, you're going to need some sort of a broker system, which they have in place. So it'll get a little different, a little more complicated that way, and I don't know how the funding will work, and I don't know what the price leaving the generators will be in 2023. So that was a reason for taking an extension, you know, to get us through to that
Yes.
point if we needed to.
All right. Well, thanks for explaining that. Anybody else? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Councilor Hill and Councilor Wilmot.
Councilor Cordino?
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey?
Yes.
Councilor Hill?
Yes.
Councilor Tesserero?
No.
Councilor Wilmot?
Yes. Item number 4, Brian Chetney, Youth Bureau Executive Director, requests approval for the mayor to sign an agreement between the City of Oswego and County of Oswego to reimburse the city for time spent by the Youth Activities Aid on the AmeriCorps grant program. Mr. Chetney?
All right, so as part of the grant we received for our 2018-19 year for the AmeriCorps program, there is money built into that to offset the work that Youth Activities Aid will be doing. So it's just basically a procedure to accept that funding.
Very good. Any comments or questions for Mr. Chetney? I only had one item. I reviewed the contract, and I don't know if this is a question for our city attorney or not, but I see that this was signed by the county chairman, Mr. Broadwell, back in December, and he's no longer the chairman from what I read in the paper. So after we sign it in the month of January, is it still binding contract if the person who signed it as chairman is no longer chairman when we finalize it?
Yeah, I think that I will check with the county attorney to make sure when the authorization occurred at the county level. I'm presuming because Mr. Broadwell's county chair signed it, it was signed when he was legally the chair, and it was upon authorization. If there's a need to to make a modification for the new chair to sign it, we can always make that, that change. But I think we're going to be okay, but let me get back to you on that with the, after I speak to the county attorney.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chetney. Anybody else? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please? Counselor Tesorario, Counselor Hill.
Counselor Corradino.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Tesorero.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes. Item number 5, the clerk's office is requesting the council to rescind resolution number 362 dated October 9th, 2018, as a duplicate resolution regarding change order number 1 for the East Side wastewater treatment plant dewatering equipment replacement for contract number 2 with Scriber Electric in the amount of $0. Is there anybody here that wants to explain this?
Yes, this was, we had 2 resolutions passed that authorized the same payment, so this resolution is needed just for housekeeping purposes.
Very good. Any comments, concerns? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Counselor Hill, Counselor DeMassey.
Counselor Corradino.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Tesorero.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes. Item number 6 is being pulled because it does not apply. We've changed the way that we now authorize travel, and if it was voted in the budget, there's no reason for a department head to come to the council for approval. So item number 6, again, is pulled. That, I believe, is the last item for the Administrative Services Committee meeting. Is there any other unfinished or any other items that we need to discuss?
Counselor, you have an add-on.
Let me see. Guess what? It's at the bottom of my paperwork. Thank you for reminding me. Mayor William J. Barlow requests permission to enter into an agreement and authorizing funding for the Wattis Law Firm to administer the seeker process associated with the comprehensive zoning code rewrite. The Wattis Law Firm performed the rewrite of the zoning code and is best suited to administer the seeker during the public discussion and finalization process later this month. The billing rate is $275 per hour, not to exceed $15,000. Counselor, would you like to expand on that?
I'd be happy to. As part of the adoption of new zoning, New York State law, this is not a city code or a charter provision, but it's the general city law of the state of New York, requires that a municipality that's adopting a new zoning regulation must comply with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. And this is what's constituted as a Type 1 action under SEQR, which is the highest level of environmental review. It's important that this process be followed correctly and properly because it's our zoning regulations, and you've experienced in the last couple of years any type of legal action that's brought from a zoning perspective. One of the challenges that the city can face is whether they followed SEQR, the SEQR process. And if our zoning regulations didn't follow SEQR, then our whole zoning process could be thrown out, and so a controversial zoning issue that somebody doesn't like and takes the city on and challenges it, and we find out that we didn't comply with SEQR in the full process, could be a problem for the city to defend a lawsuit. So you may ask, well, Caracola, you've been around for a while. You know what SEQR is. You always preach it to the zoning board and the planning board. Why don't you do it? And that's a fair question. And I'm not looking to give work away or cause money to the city. But as the city attorney and one that's asked to defend this law, these potential lawsuits and handling zoning, I think it is a good use of the city's resources to hire the firm that has been working for the better part of a year and a half or more on our zoning to complete this process. The zoning laws, bless you, the zoning laws have actually, I'm sorry, the seeker laws have just changed actually effective January 1st as well. So it does get into a little bit more detail, not necessarily over my head, but it is, I'd feel much more comfortable with Mr. Lembrecht and his associates and the Lattice Law Firm handling this one final piece of the approval process for the city. I think it'll make for an acceptable conclusion to what we think and believe is going to be a document that survives all of us and for many years to come and well suits the city for future growth and development. So I would recommend adoption of this resolution, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the council? Or comments? All right, I guess you're off the hook.
Thank you.
I mean, this has been an ongoing process, and there was a lot to it. I know the councilors, we have had meetings with Tim at Lattice Law Firm, and it's a very, very complicated topic and project, and certainly there's a lot of moving parts to this. So I agree that having them continue with the seeker process is probably a good thing, and make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Anybody else? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Councilor Tesorerio, Councilor DeMassey.
Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Tesorero.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
And we need a resolution.
And we need a resolution. Mr. Caracoli will take care of that. I believe this is the last item for this committee meeting, unless anybody else wants to point an error on my part. So seeing nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Hill, Councilor Tesorerio.
Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Tesorero.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to call the Physical Services Committee meeting for January 7th, 2019 to order. Please call the roll.
Councilor Hill.
Here.
Councilor Wilmot.
Here.
Councilor DeMassey.
Here.
Councilor Gozick.
Here.
Could I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 3rd, 2018 committee meeting? Councilor Wilmot. Councilor Gozick.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Is there any old business to come before this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business under communication. Item number 1, Mayor William J. Barlow Jr. received a request from Ellen Clark regarding the Hearts on the Bridge project for the month of February. There are 16 hearts with LED lighting. Mrs. Clark is requesting the Department of Public Works, Traffic Department place the hearts on the Bridge Street Bridge on February 1st, 2019, and remove them February 28th, 2019. Mrs. Clark?
Hi. Basically, everything is the same. I've spoken with Tom Kells. They're all set to, put the hearts up, take them down. Like I said, first of the month, end of the month, weather dependent. I've also spoken with Kevin Caracoli about the insurance, and that will be handled again this year. And as far as the extra 6 hearts, what I'm looking to do is have them this year go from West 1st Street to East 1st Street, covering the bridge in the center, just to, move them out just a little bit. Everything else remains the same. I'm asking for the extra 6 hearts, but there's no guarantee of that because I'm not the one that creates them. So if they become available to me, I'd like them to be able to be up. And I've invited my brother to be here tonight to see the Common Council meeting. He is the former mayor of Leesburg, Virginia, so I thought you could see how we work here.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Mrs. Clark? Councilor Gozick.
No, I'd just like to thank Ellen for all she does, and it really is nice. In the middle of winter around here, it's dark enough and miserable enough with the weather. I've heard lots of people around town just randomly commenting on it, whether it's over at the hotel by the waterfront or whether it's downtown. So it's nice. It cheers people up. I think it's for people that live here and even people that come to town. It makes it kind of a mini little attraction. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, could I have a motion, please? Counselor Wilmot. Counselor Gozick.
Counselor Hill.
Yes.
Counselor Wilmot.
Yes.
Counselor DeMassey.
Yes.
Counselor Gozick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, Kevin Caracoli, City Attorney, recommends a favorable consideration of a request by Congressman John Katko to renew the current district office lease by amendment through the entire 116th Congress. And there is an attachment. And Counselor?
Thank you, Counselor. The lease, the office space for Congressman Katko, which is right off of the council entrance, has formally expired now. With the start of the 116th Congress, the former lease expired on January 2nd of 2019. The Congressman's office got a little behind in their timing, but sent this out, and we got this on the agenda for this evening and then for formal council consideration next week. This is virtually the same lease as was previously entered into, not just with Congressman Katko, but other representatives throughout the years. The City of Oswego and City Hall has housed the district office, the House of Representatives, for a number of years now. It's a lease for $1, so nobody's getting rich off of this one. It's the same space that is being provided. The only thing that we had to verify, and I did with Mr. Bonning, was that we had, I think it's an Ethernet capability or something to that effect, so that we had to verify, which he did indicate that there is that availability in City Hall. So we would be compliant with offering the services of our facilities to Congressman Katko and the House of Representatives, and by virtue of that, he would be authorized to enter into this agreement. And just for your interest, this is not a ministerial act that somebody in Washington signs off. This lease mandates that the congressman himself actually sign this lease. So I will exact $1 out of him one of these days and make sure that the Chamberlain gets it.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the City Attorney? Okay, could I have Counselor?
Through the chair. Councilor Caracoli, according to the contract that I read, it says that we are supposed to provide assigned parking for the congressman and his aides. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen any signs out front that says Congressman Katko's parking. So if it says it in the contract and we don't do it, is that a problem?
I don't know what the mayor, I'm not exactly sure what the trade-off was, but the spots that are now the electric charging stations were designated for Congressman Katko's office representatives. They are here, I believe, on Wednesdays each week, if they are here. So I don't know how the mayor traded off those spots for another spot. I'm just opening it up to anybody if anyone knows. I'll have to find that answer and have it for you for next week. But yeah, the Oswego Police Department could also issue a on-street parking permit, and we'll make those arrangements one way or the other.
All right, very good.
Be in compliance.
Thank you.
I think there was a question over here that Mr. Holman may have had.
Mr. Chair, my question is, do we have any assurances that he was physically occupied on all that he didn't last year?
He himself, or no, his staff was here on Wednesdays. I think that's their office day. Yeah, I can personally attest that I saw actual living bodies over there. Come by on a Wednesday, or I'll give you a call when it happens, and you can come on.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Wilmot, Councilor DeMassey.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Is there any other business to come before this committee? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councilor Gozick, Councilor DeMassey. Oh, we have banana? Look at that.
Sorry, I didn't tell you.
No, nobody told me this one. All right. Okay, so we have an additional item.
Wow.
Item number 3. This is a... Just one second. Yeah. Okay. This is a request for a landfill permit submitted by RM Burritt Motors, Inc. in order to landfill on property they own at 340 State Route 104, as shown on the attached site plan. This is being provided at the request of the city engineer. So, Mr. Johnson?
Burritt Motors is putting on an addition, right? And they've got an opportunity now to start moving some earth in preparation of that project. There's a lot of cut and fill that needs to be done and leveling. So this will allow them to start the process prior to actually getting their building permit.
Did you have any concerns with the request?
No, they're putting the silt fence up. They've put a SWEP into the DEC already. So it's just an effort to move the project along. And landfill permit needs your blessing, or a fill permit, not a landfill, but a fill permit.
And do we monitor the process to make sure that they're abiding by any applicable requirements, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go out, periodically take a look at it, but also, as soon as they open a SWEP, their engineering firm will also monitor that. So.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Johnson? Could I have a motion, please? Councilor Wilmot, Councilor Gozick.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, is there any other business to come before this committee? Any other surprises, secrets? Deb, you're smiling? No? Okay. All right. I will take a motion to adjourn. Councilor Wilmot, Councilor DeMassey.
Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Councilor Wilmot.
Yes.
Councilor DeMassey.
Yes.
Councilor Gozick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee meeting to order January 7th, 2019. Can I have the roll, please?
Councilor Tesoriero.
Here.
Councilor Corradino.
Here.
Councilor McBrady.
Here.
Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the November 5th, 2018 committee meeting? Councilor Cordino, Councilor McBrady.
Councilor Tesoriero.
Yes.
Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor McBrady.
Yes.
Is there any old business to come before this committee? I see none. I'll go to communication. Item number 1, Kevin Caracoli, City Attorney, presents a request from Mary Beth Dokas, owner of the property located at 73 West Bridge Street, for favorable consideration from the Common Council to modify Resolution 358 of 2018, which prohibits the parking of vehicles in public space between the curb and a private property line on any street. Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that this request has received some considerable attention among the council, and that's appreciated. This request and the second one are very similar. There's some differences, and so I don't want to mix the two up. But fundamentally, it's their request for consideration of modification of the resolution that was adopted just this past October that forbids now any parking within public green space. I don't need or necessarily want to rehash the reasons or the history. It was, I believe, a unanimous decision of this council. But like everything else, there's maybe another side of the story or an experience that comes up after the fact that doesn't necessarily make the decision that you made wrong or different in any way, but in this case, there's been a request for reconsideration. There are, and I've tried to verify this anecdotally through the code department and the engineering department. There's probably, there's at least three property owners in the city of Oswego that have received prior written permission to use public space for off-street parking, at least since 2011. There may be more. We don't believe that there are any more than perhaps a half a dozen, but I can't tell you with any certainty. We know of at least 3 for sure. 2 of them are before you tonight, Ms. Dokas and the next one, Ms. Lyons Ali. In the case of Ms. Dokas, and I know she's here, we'll be happy to make her own presentation. The permission was granted in 2011 by a prior owner of the property over on 5th and Bridge Street, West Side. I believe Ms. Dokas acquired the property sometime in 2016 and has been working on other properties and getting them beautified, and it was the turn to do this one. But then when she came in for the permit, was told, you're too late. The council acted. The 2011 resolution, and every resolution that is granted for use of public space, has a clause in there that it is essentially a license. It's revocable. The council can revoke it for any reason or for no reason. In this case, my legal opinion that the council's action in October with the resolution forbidding public green space acts as a revocation of any prior permit. That being said, I know I've offered you a couple of options for your consideration. One is to say, no, we're putting our foot down. We do not want to have this happen anymore. And if prior resolutions were granted but no action was taken, so be it. That's the final word. The other option I've offered is that you could consider a modification to the resolution, allowing anyone that can demonstrate that they have legal permission by way of a resolution to modify the green space, to follow through with that. If you are inclined to do something like that, I would also add that you set a very hard cutoff for that, maybe no more than 6 months from now or thereabouts, the July 1st or June 30th or somewhere around that time frame. That should get everyone, and we think it's maybe a half a dozen people in the city of Oswego that received one of these resolutions and permits, they'll be fully aware of it because the press is here and they're going to report on this, and it'll give them the full opportunity to make the changes. If they don't after that, I can't fault anyone who doesn't do it. But that decision is completely yours. I'm happy to answer any questions that come up from a legal perspective. I know, again, Ms. Dokas is here, and she can provide her own reasons and explanations and rationale for what she's looking to do and why she perhaps didn't act prior to the change in the law. But at this point, I think I've talked enough, and I'll open it up back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Any questions? Comments? None? I see none. Can I get a motion on this to not approve?
Ron, can you, Mrs. Dokas would probably want to talk.
I gave her the opportunity.
Okay.
Susan? I get a second? Councilor Cordino?
Point of order. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I heard the chair's request for a motion not to approve. I would ask that you consider a motion to approve and then vote on it. Again, it's more construction and legalese than anything else, but generally resolutions are offered in the affirmative, and you either vote for them or against them.
Thank you,
Right.
Counselor, I appreciate that. So I amend,
Could I say something before we vote?
yes, Counselor Cordino.
I guess I do have a comment. Just came late to me. I understand what the city attorney is explaining to us. I think we all reviewed this in the last week or so. I know Mrs. Dokas was nice enough to call me and to contact other people. This is an issue that we discussed in detail back in October when we passed this law. And it's got good intentions, I think. The whole idea that, building on what the ORA is trying to do to enhance our neighborhoods and to do away with paving and putting blacktop and green space between the curb and the sidewalk, it cheapens our neighborhoods and makes them look trashy, maybe. Maybe that's not a good word, but so the intent that we had back in October, I believe, was a good one, and now, fast forward to January, I don't think that intent is diminished. We still, as a council, I believe, we still are focused on improving our neighborhoods. And as a longtime resident of the city of Oswego, and as the oldest member of the council, as Councilor Tesorario will point out many times, this situation with this particular property and with many other properties in the city of Oswego has been going on for decades. I mean, we've had banned parking in the winter on our streets for as long as I can remember. And this particular property, I know, was a office, real estate office, as well as apartments upstairs or behind. And they've always had parking situations or issues. And there's many other instances throughout the city where people have parking concerns or issues. Again, falling back on that intent back in October, we can't solve every single problem that comes up. And the overall riding intent of this council is to try to improve the neighborhood. I have to be honest, I don't see where adding one spot is going to improve what you have, Mrs. Dokas. I mean, the original site plan that I have here listed 2 parking spaces, and apparently only one was put in at the time, and you're looking for that second one to be put in. But as, again, a longtime resident and also a landlord myself, I can't see where one spot is going to improve your rentability of this property. But it could, again, set a precedent that the council is not prepared to support, that we're trying to improve the neighborhood and improve our use of green space. So with that said, I probably spoke too long, but with that said, I cannot approve, I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you can.
Sorry.
Councilor
I would just
Bird.
like to say that I think that we worked very hard back in September and October to come up with a cutoff point. And again, I think we do have some alternative solutions for what is in reality a very brief window of parking constriction. And I will be not voting in favor of this either.
Any other comments? Sure.
So I understand, I've heard everything that everyone said, and I certainly understand what your premise is. But what Kevin didn't mention and what hasn't been brought up is the fact that when I purchased this property, I purchased it with the understanding that I was going to be able to put in another parking spot, and that right next to where there is one already. And that was the reason why I purchased that property, because there are currently 2 apartments there. One is a 4-bedroom, one is a 1-bedroom, and then there's the office space. And when you look at that property, you'll see that right now, what I'm asking for doesn't really take up that much green space because the whole rest of the block is all grass. So the fact that it's an investment property for me, that my intention when I bought it was to be such, with the understanding that I had this permission. When I went in to get my permit, at the time it was Jim Bell who was in charge of that office, said, yes, you're good to go. And so the only reason it didn't get done last fall was because I needed to get the money to do it. So then when I went in this fall to do it, because I had the money, they told me that I couldn't do it. And if I had known, we were only talking about a couple of months before that other resolution was passed, I would have borrowed the money or figured out something. But the fact still remains is that if I'm able to put that spot in there, it is going to look a lot better. Right now, when you look at it, it's kind of a mess. And the fact that I was already given permission for that, I feel as though sometimes you can grandfather somebody in or make an exception, like Kevin was saying. And in a circumstance like this, I think this is different than the reasons why you put that other resolution in the first place.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gozick.
Thank you. I'm not a voting member of the committee, but personally, I think looking at this, the next request is from Gina Lyons, Muhammad Ali, who live in my ward. And I think with the few citizens that it does affect that have the council resolutions from the past, I would like to see the committee members reconsider and think about putting this through to the full council, because councils in the past have given their approval for this, and I understand that the new amendment or the new law trumps this, but I think with the few cases, as Councilor Caracoli pointed out, there's only a handful in the whole city. If that, we only know of 3 definitely. As consider putting it through to the council, but that's just my request. I'm sympathetic to Ms. Stokas and Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor DeMasi.
I 1,000% agree. I think there's times you have to grandfather when you make any big changes such as we did. If there's proof and they have documents of things that it is quite our right to waiver from something moving forward for that. I would really hope the committee would think about that and what was already a commitment and what was already approved. In any cases, you have to look at basis on that, and I just strongly feel that way.
Any other comments? Councilor Caracoli, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If we decide to not, I guess, make a decision on this tonight, we table it.
Yeah, it could be tabled if you wanted to see what a modified ordinance might look like to build in those exceptions. I could certainly provide that. I understand. I mean, it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out that there are no votes on this committee to even bring this to the full council in its current form. So. If there were a motion to table, that motion is not subject to further debate. It hasn't been called yet, but that is certainly one option. Another option is for the chair to call for a motion. If it isn't made and seconded, it kind of sits in limbo. That may or may not be something that is favorable to this council. That, to me, that would mean it could be brought up in the future. If there was a motion that was made and seconded and this committee voted not to bring it to the council, I think in that case the issue is final. Or as the chair suggested, if it's tabled for the development of an ordinance to see what it would look like, that it's up for another day or another committee meeting to consider that. But I think those are the options that I see are available for this committee tonight.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
May I make one more comment, or actually ask a question?
Councilor Freddie.
Councilor Gozick, do you have additional information on the application for the alley.
Yeah, Miss Gina.
Is there a driveway down the side and parking in the back?
Gina Lyons' father's here. He came in, so he was going to speak to that, I believe.
Is there parking on, currently at the property, the driveway down the
Yeah, well,
side
listen.
and parking in the back?
Yeah, when we get to that one, I mean, it's the next item, but there's the maps in here showing the existing parking.
Any other comments? Can I get a motion to table? I see none. So, can I get a motion to approve?
We have to motion it.
Councilor Cordino, can I call the roll?
Counselor Tesarero?
No.
Counselor Corradino?
No.
Counselor McBurney?
No.
Okay. We'll go down to item 2. Kevin Caracoli, City Attorney, presents a request from Gina Lyons, owner of property located 70 West Mohawk Street, for favorable consideration from the Common Council to modify Resolution 358 of 2018, which prohibits the parking of vehicles in public space between the curb and the property line at any street. We're virtually talking about the same thing here.
Virtually, but there is a slight nuance that I don't necessarily think would change the committee's vote from that just passed, but I do feel the need to explain what I believe is the solution for this property owner. As I understand it, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe I spoke to Ms. Lyons Ali, who informed me that both she and her husband are handicapped, have handicap stickers on their vehicle. In speaking with Commissioner Kells with respect to off-street parking, my understanding that somebody that has handicap tags can park on the street. The issue is winter parking, perhaps, and also a designated spot. What complicates this particular property owner's its close proximity to the Oswego Hospital. And if there were a handicap designated spot right outside the house, there's nothing to say that somebody that was going to the hospital couldn't use that spot, and that's a valid concern. In fact, Ms. Lyons Ali said, well, could the city grant us that spot specifically for us, and maybe even put our name, designated for the Lyons Ali or 70 West Mohawk Street? I said, possibly, but there is a committee that handles that. That's the Traffic Advisory Committee. And so, and I've talked at some length with Mr. Gozik about this, and encouraged them to apply for the handicap parking designated spot in front of their house, and further with the provision that there be a specific reservation of that spot for that particular property owner. Again, I think that's within the jurisdiction of the TAC, and I understand that there's kind of a dual track here. Ms. Lyons Ali and her husband wanted to present this to the full council, but alternatively, I think they followed my suggestion and submitted an application for the Traffic Advisory Committee. I do believe that they're on that agenda. So if your reasoning, rationale for the prior determination holds up for this one, and I don't know that I could disagree with that, I believe these property owners have another avenue, and that's the Traffic Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion? Councilor McBurney, Councilor Cordino. Call the roll.
Counselor Tesarero?
No.
Counselor Corradino?
No.
Counselor McBurney?
No.
Going on to item 3, that has been tabled. Going on to item 4, the Planning and Development Office received an application from New Singular Wireless, PCS, AT&T, to construct a 155-foot monopole wireless telecommunications facility on a portion of the property located at 300 East Albany Street. The Common Council is requesting that the said application be referred to the Planning Board for an advisory opinion. Upon advisory, the application will return to the Planning and Development Committee for further consideration. Is there anybody here to speak about this?
I'm happy to. This is a request from AT&T to place the wireless communication pole up by the Speedway. This is following the council's procedure in the city code. It was adopted number of years ago now. I think predates this administration, but only by a year or two, where a request for telecommunications tower is made to the council. It's council's ultimate vote whether to approve it or not, but as part of that, you seek an advisory opinion of the planning board. I do know that, and I believe it's in your packet, but perhaps not with the amount of detail that the planning and zoning folks have upstairs, but there is a rather thick packet of plans, all the specs related to this project. And so I would recommend that there's an affirmative vote sending this on to the planning board for their review and advisory opinion back to the council.
One question, Councilor. Does this have any concern with the proximity to maybe the Scribe town line, where we'd have to have, maybe, I know how you spoke the other night about being so far away.
Yeah. It's a great question. I will take a look at that. There may be an argument to be made because the property, even though the pole will be set back and closer to the track and within a fall zone that does not interfere with anyone else, the question is whether it's 500 feet from a municipal boundary that would require the town to weigh in. If they were, it would only be, again, an advisory. They don't have any independent authority to vote it down or quash it in any way. So it would be more of a courtesy notice. But I'll check. As I'm thinking about this, the church actually owns property before the pole, and the fall zone actually is outside of the church's property. And then, of course, the church property fronts City Line Road, which, of course, on the other side is Scriba. So it may not. It's a great question. I'll do a little research to see if any part of that property touches City Line Road, and then I can. Okay. If that's the case, we'll just add the town of Scriba as a interested party for this purpose.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion? Councilor Corradino, Councilor McBrearty.
Councilor Tesserero.
Yes.
Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor McBrearty.
Yes.
Any other business come before this committee? I see none. I'm going to ask for a motion for adjournment. Councilor Corradino, Councilor McBrearty.
Councilor Tesserero.
Yes.
Councilor Corradino.
Yes.
Councilor McBrearty.
Yes.